Ambassador Elena Vazquez stood in the pristine white corridors of the Galactic Council's flagship station. Her black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the sterile environment that housed representatives from over 400 different species. The artificial gravity felt slightly off to human sensibilities, calibrated for the average physiology of council members rather than the specific needs of any one species. Elena had grown accustomed to the sensation over her 2 years as Earth's primary representative, though she still occasionally caught herself adjusting her stance when walking these halls. The emergency session had been called with unprecedented urgency. In her decades of diplomatic service, first on Earth and now in the galactic arena, Elena had never seen the Council move with such speed. The message had reached her private quarters at 0347 station time, delivered by a nervous Altarian clerk whose translucent blue skin had flushed an alarming shade of purple as he stammered through the summons. Emergency sessions were rare enough that most species maintained skeleton crews for such occasions, but this gathering would see full representation from every major power block in the galaxy. Elena's personal assistant, a young human named Marcus Chen, fell into step beside her as she approached the Grand Assembly Chamber. Marcus carried himself with the careful precision that Earth's diplomatic corps had drilled into all their personnel. Alert but not aggressive, respectful but not subservient. The training had served them well in navigating the complex social hierarchies that governed galactic politics, where a misunderstood gesture could trigger trade wars or worse. "Ma'am, I've received the preliminary reports from our intelligence division," Marcus said, his voice lowered to ensure their conversation remained private despite the babble of alien languages surrounding them. "The incident at Kepler 442b appears to be more severe than initial communications suggested." Elena nodded grimly. "Kepler? R. 2b, designated as Titan Colony in human records, housed nearly 50,000 human civilians engaged in atmospheric processing and mineral extraction under a joint development agreement with the Hegemony Corporate Consortium. The colony had been Earth's most successful off-world settlement, a testament to human adaptability and engineering prowess that had quietly impressed even their most skeptical galactic neighbors. The agricultural domes alone fed 3 other human settlements, while the manufacturing complexes produced everything from basic tools to sophisticated medical equipment. The initial distress signal had been brief and fragmented, cutting off mid-transmission in a way that suggested either catastrophic system failure or deliberate communication jamming. Standard protocol called for an investigation by Council peacekeepers, but Elena knew the reality of galactic bureaucracy meant that any meaningful response would take weeks to organize and deploy. For a species barely 3 years into galactic society, humanity had learned quickly that they could expect little help from established powers when crisis struck. "What's our current status with the hegemony?" Elena asked as they paused before the massive doors of the assembly chamber. The doors themselves were a marvel of engineering, composed of some crystalline material that shifted color based on the emotional resonance of those nearby. Currently, they pulsed with deep reds and unsettling oranges, reflecting the tension that filled the station. "Officially, they maintain that the situation at Titan Colony is an internal corporate matter being handled according to established protocols," Marcus replied, consulting his data tablet. "Unofficially, our sources suggest they're as surprised by events as we are. The corporate consortium's board of directors called an emergency meeting 6 hours ago, and their military assets in the region have gone to high alert." Elena frowned. The Hegemony Corporate Consortium controlled mineral rights across 17 star systems and employed more than 2 billion sentient beings across dozens of species. They were one of the galaxy's most powerful economic entities, with sufficient political influence to shape council policy through carefully applied pressure and strategic campaign contributions. If they were genuinely caught off guard by events at Titan Colony, it suggested something far more serious than a simple industrial accident or labor dispute. The assembly chamber doors recognized Elena's diplomatic credentials and began their slow, ceremonial opening. The vast space beyond could accommodate representatives from every known sapient species, with environmental controls that maintain thousands of different atmospheric combinations simultaneously. Gravity fields, temperature zones, and even localized radiation levels could be adjusted for each delegation's specific needs, creating a complex patchwork of habitable spaces within the single chamber. Elena took her assigned seat in the human section, one of the newest additions to the chamber. Their area was small compared to the ancient powers like the Altarian Federation or the Crystalline Hegemony, but it was positioned strategically near the speaker's platform where she could clearly observe the proceedings. The human delegation consisted of only 7 members, reflecting Earth's junior status within the Council, But Elena knew that each of them had been carefully selected for their expertise in different aspects of galactic affairs. As other delegations filed into their positions, Elena noted the unusual level of activity among the security personnel. Normally, council sessions were protected by a handful of ceremonial guards from different species, their primary function being symbolic rather than practical. Today, she counted at least 40 guards stationed throughout the chamber, their exotic weapons and armor creating an unmistakable atmosphere of potential violence. The hegemony delegation took their seats across the chamber, their bulky forms requiring specialized furniture that could support their considerable mass. Elena had worked with hegemony representatives before and found them to be shrewd but generally honorable in their business dealings. Their society valued efficiency and profit above most other considerations, but they understood that long-term success required maintaining trustworthy relationships with their partners. The fact that they appeared as surprised as everyone else by recent events was itself significant information. Director General Cuthvar called the session to order with the traditional harmonic chime that resonated across the various atmospheric zones. The ancient crystalline beings formed caught and refracted the chamber's lighting into brilliant cascades of color as they moved, a display that never failed to impress despite Elena's familiarity with different alien physiologies. Cuthvar had held the Director General position for nearly 2 centuries, their crystalline matrix storing vast amounts of information and experience that made them uniquely qualified to manage the Council's complex operations. Representatives of the Galactic Council. Cuthvar's voice carried clearly through the translation systems. We convene this emergency session to address events that have occurred in the Kepler. The information we have received is both disturbing and unprecedented in the recent history of our civilized galaxy. Elena leaned forward slightly, her diplomatic training keeping her expression neutral despite the growing tension in her chest. Around the chamber, she could see similar reactions from other delegations as the gravity of the Director General's tone became apparent. 3 days ago, monitoring stations detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the Kepler 442b colony designated as Titan by its human inhabitants. Cuthvar continued. Initial investigations suggested possible equipment malfunctions or natural geological phenomena. However, subsequent analysis has revealed evidence of what appears to be a coordinated military action of unprecedented scale and sophistication. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds as various species expressed their shock and confusion in their own languages. Elena felt her own heart rate increase as the implications began to sink in. Military action against a civilian colony was not merely a violation of Council law, it was the kind of atrocity that could destabilize the entire galactic order. The carefully maintained balance between different species and power blocks depended on the understanding that civilian populations were off-limits to political conflicts. The evidence suggests, Cuthvar's voice rose above the din, that Titan colony was subjected to an orbital bombardment followed by a ground assault that resulted in the complete destruction of all surface installations and the apparent elimination of its entire population. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Elena felt the blood drain from her face as she processed the magnitude of what had been revealed. 50,000 human civilians, including families with children, researchers, and workers who had volunteered to help build humanity's future among the stars, had been murdered in what sounded like a deliberate act of genocide. Furthermore, the Director General continued, their crystalline form pulsing with deeper colors that Elena's translation implant interpreted as profound concern. Preliminary forensic analysis indicates that the weapons used in this attack were of human origin. The silence that followed was deafening.
Elena struggled to maintain her diplomatic composure as the implications crashed over her like a physical blow.
If human weapons had been used in the attack on Titan colony, it suggested either that humans had committed genocide against their own people, or that someone had acquired Earth's military technology for the purpose of framing humanity for this atrocity. Representative Gorthek of the hegemony delegation rose ponderously from their reinforced chair, their massive form commanding immediate attention. The hegemony species resembled bipedal elephants crossed with armored tanks, their thick grey skin capable of deflecting small arms fire, and their 4 arms allowing them to manipulate tools with remarkable precision despite their bulk. Director General, honored representatives, Gorthek's voice rumbled through the chamber's translation matrix. The Hegemony Corporate Consortium wishes to express our profound shock and horror at these revelations. Titan Colony operated under our development charter, and we considered its human inhabitants to be valued partners in our mutual enterprise. We demand a full investigation into these crimes and justice for those responsible. Elena appreciated the hegemony representative's statement, but she knew that expressions of sympathy would not be sufficient to address the crisis now facing humanity. If the preliminary evidence suggested human involvement in the massacre, Earth would face immediate sanctions, possible expulsion from the Council, and potentially even military retaliation from species seeking to prevent human expansion into their territories. The Altarian Federation's senior representative, Ambassador Zynlos, rose gracefully from their delegation area. The Altarians were among the most ancient species in the Council, their civilization spanning tens of thousands of years, and their technology bordering on what humans would consider magical. Their translucent blue skin and elongated limbs gave them an ethereal appearance that belied their considerable political and military power. The Federation shares our hegemony colleagues' concern, Ambassador Zynlos said, their melodious voice carrying undertones that Elena's implant translated as deep suspicion. However, we must also address the troubling implications of human weapons technology being involved in this atrocity. Earth's admission to the Council was contingent upon their commitment to peaceful coexistence and adherence to established protocols regarding military technology sharing. Elena recognized the political trap that was being constructed around humanity. The Altarian Federation had been among the most vocal opponents of Earth's Council membership, arguing that humans were too young and aggressive to be trusted with access to galactic civilization. If they could demonstrate that human weapons had been used in a massacre of human civilians, it would provide them with perfect justification for demanding Earth's immediate expulsion from the Council. Director General Cathcart gestured for attention, their crystalline form shifting to cooler blue tones that the translation matrix interpreted as a call for calm deliberation. The investigation into these events is ongoing, and we must be careful not to draw premature conclusions based on incomplete information. However, the Council's responsibility to maintain peace and stability throughout our member territories requires that we take immediate action to prevent any escalation of this crisis. Elena knew what was coming next. The Council's standard response to situations involving potential violations of galactic law was to impose immediate sanctions while investigations proceeded. For a junior member like Earth, such sanctions could effectively cut off humanity from the trade relationships and technological exchanges that had begun to revolutionize human civilization over the past 3 years. Therefore, the Director General continued, pending the completion of a full forensic investigation, the Council hereby imposes immediate restrictions on Earth's access to galactic communication networks, trade relationships, and territorial expansion rights. These restrictions will remain in place until the investigation determines the extent of human involvement in the Titan colony massacre. The pronouncement hit Elena like a physical blow. The restrictions amounted to effective isolation, cutting Earth off from the galactic community at exactly the moment when humanity needed allies and support most desperately. Worse, the isolation would be interpreted by Earth's government and military as a sign that the Council considered humanity to be responsible for the massacre. Elena rose from her seat, invoking her right as Earth's primary representative to address the assembly. The chamber fell silent as attention focused on the small human delegation, and Elena felt the weight of history pressing down upon her shoulders. Her next words would shape how the galaxy perceived humanity's response to this crisis and potentially determine whether Earth's future lay in peaceful coexistence or violent isolation. Director General, honored representatives, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. Earth categorically denies any involvement in the Titan colony massacre. The 50,000 civilians who died there were our people, our children, our researchers, our pioneers. The suggestion that Earth would murder its own citizens is both absurd and deeply offensive. She paused, allowing the translation systems to process her words and convey not just their meaning, but the emotional weight behind them. Around the chamber, she could see various representatives considering her statement, their alien physiologies expressing skepticism, sympathy, or calculation in ways that her diplomatic training helped her interpret. However, Elena continued, Earth accepts the Council's decision to conduct a full investigation, and we pledge our complete cooperation with any forensic teams or investigators assigned to determine the truth. We demand justice for our murdered citizens, regardless of who is ultimately found responsible for this atrocity. As Elena resumed her seat, she noticed something that chilled her more than the Council's sanctions or the evidence of human weapons at the massacre site. In the gallery section reserved for observers and press representatives, a figure in the distinctive robes of the Eternal Archive was making careful notes of the proceedings. The Eternal Archive served as the galaxy's collective memory, recording significant events for posterity and ensuring that important information survived the rise and fall of civilizations. The fact that they were documenting this session suggested that the massacre at Titan Colony would be remembered as a pivotal moment in galactic history. Elena could only hope that when future historians studied these records, they would remember it as the day that justice was served rather than the day that humanity's brief membership in galactic civilization came to a violent and tragic end. As the session moved into formal procedures and bureaucratic details, Elena found her mind racing through the implications of everything she had learned. Someone had massacred 50,000 human civilians using human weapons, potentially as part of a deliberate effort to frame Earth for genocide. The attack had been sophisticated enough to suggest military-grade planning and resources, yet surprising enough to catch even the powerful hegemony corporate consortium off guard. Elena realized that Earth was facing something far more dangerous than a simple industrial accident or terrorist attack. This was the opening move in what appeared to be a carefully orchestrated campaign to destroy humanity's place in galactic civilization. The question was, who had the resources and motivation to orchestrate such an elaborate plot? And more importantly, whether Earth's government would be able to uncover the truth before the isolation and suspicion destroyed everything humanity had worked to build among the stars. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Force's flagship, the UES Indomitable, watching as streams of data flowed across holographic displays that surrounded her position. The ship's quantum processors worked continuously to analyze the flood of information pouring in from reconnaissance drones, deep space monitoring stations, and intelligence assets scattered across human-controlled space. Each data stream told part of the story of what had happened at Titan Colony, but none of them provided the complete picture that Chen needed to understand the true scope of the threat facing humanity. The Indomitable represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, incorporating both Earth-developed technology and carefully adapted innovations acquired through humanity's membership in the Galactic Council. At nearly 2 kilometers in length, the ship could house a crew of 8,000 while maintaining atmospheric and gravitational conditions indistinguishable from Earth normal. Its weapons systems combined traditional human kinetic weaponry with exotic energy systems that could punch through the shields and armor of any known hostile vessel. Chen had commanded the Indomitable for 18 months, leading humanity's first deep space military expedition to establish patrol routes and early warning systems in the outer regions of human territory. The mission had been largely ceremonial, designed more to demonstrate Earth's commitment to defending its citizens than to address any genuine military threats. The galaxy's established powers maintained such overwhelming technological and numerical superiority that no rational analysis suggested Earth could face serious military opposition for at least another generation. That analysis had proven catastrophically wrong. "Admiral, we're receiving priority communications from Earth Command," reported Commander Martinez, Chen's communications officer. The young woman had been handpicked for this mission based on her expertise in xenolinguistics and quantum encryption protocols, skills that had proven invaluable in managing communications across the vast distances and security requirements of interstellar operations. "Put it through to my private channel," Chen instructed, moving to the secure communication alcove that allowed her to receive classified transmissions without exposing sensitive information to the bridge crew. The alcove's isolation field activated automatically as she stepped inside, creating a barrier that prevented both electronic surveillance and acoustic eavesdropping. The holographic image of General Morrison materialized in the cramped space, his weathered features grim with exhaustion and stress. Morrison had served as Earth's supreme military commander for 7 years, overseeing humanity's transition from a planet-bound species to one capable of defending interests across multiple star systems. The transformation had required not just technological advancement, but fundamental changes in military doctrine, training, and strategic thinking that had pushed human military capabilities to their absolute limits. "Sarah, the situation has deteriorated significantly since our last communication," Morrison began without preamble. "The forensic evidence from Titan Colony confirms our worst fears. The weapons used in the massacre were definitely of human origin, but they weren't stolen from our arsenals. They were manufactured specifically for this attack, using classified specifications that should have been impossible for anyone outside our most secure facilities to access." Chen felt cold dread settling in her stomach as the implications of Morrison's words became clear. If the weapons had been manufactured specifically for the attack using classified human specifications, it meant that either someone within Earth's military hierarchy was involved in the massacre, or that Earth's most sensitive security systems had been compromised to an extent that bordered on inconceivable. "What's our current assessment of the perpetrators?" Chen asked, her military training keeping her voice steady despite the growing alarm she felt. Do we have any evidence pointing to specific actors or organizations? Morrison's expression darkened further, if such a thing were possible. That's where things get complicated. The attack itself was carried out by ships and personnel that appear to be human, but our intelligence analysts have identified several anomalies that suggest we're dealing with something unprecedented. The attack patterns were consistent with human military doctrine, but they incorporated tactical innovations that our own strategists hadn't developed. More disturbing, genetic analysis of biological samples recovered from the attack sites shows human DNA, but with modifications that our xenobiology experts described as impossible using known technology. Chen struggled to process what she was hearing. The idea that someone could create modified humans using technology beyond Earth's capabilities suggested involvement by one of the galaxy's more advanced species. But if that were the case, why would they go to such elaborate lengths to frame humanity for the massacre? The established galactic powers had sufficient military strength to simply destroy Earth's colonies directly if they wanted to prevent human expansion. General, what's our current military status? Chen asked, recognizing that understanding the political implications would have to wait until she had a clear picture of Earth's defensive capabilities. Are we prepared for the possibility that this attack represents the opening phase of a larger campaign against human interests? Morrison nodded grimly. That's exactly what we're preparing for. I've ordered all Earth Defense Force assets to high alert, and we're recalling our deep space exploration fleets to defensive positions around our most important colonies. The problem is that we're still operating with significant intelligence gaps. We don't know who's responsible for the attack, what their ultimate objectives might be, or what level of resources they can bring to bear against us. The communication was interrupted by an urgent chime from the bridge, indicating that Commander Martinez needed to speak with the Admiral immediately. Chen stepped out of the isolation field to find her communications officer wearing an expression of barely controlled alarm. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching the edge of the Kepler 442 system, Martinez reported, her voice tight with professional concern. Initial scans suggest a fleet of at least 30 vessels moving toward Titan Colony's last known position. The energy signatures don't match any known human or council member technology. Chen felt her blood run cold as she absorbed the implications of this new development. The attackers were returning to the scene of their crime, possibly to eliminate evidence or to launch additional attacks against human interests in the region. The fact that their energy signatures didn't match known technology suggested that Earth was facing an enemy with capabilities that the galaxy's intelligence services hadn't previously catalogued. How long until they reached the system? Chen demanded, her mind already racing through tactical possibilities and resource allocation options. The Indomitable was currently positioned 3 systems away from Kepler 442. Meaning that even at maximum speed they were at least 18 hours away from the developing situation. At their current velocity, approximately 14 hours, Martinez replied, consulting the tactical displays that showed the mysterious fleet's approach vector. Admiral, there's something else. Long-range sensors are detecting similar energy signatures in 2 other systems with significant human populations. It appears that whatever happened at Titan Colony might have been just the beginning of a coordinated campaign. Chen returned to the secure communication alcove to update General Morrison on the developing situation. The general's expression shifted from grim concern to barely controlled fury as he absorbed the news of multiple potential targets and the approaching fleet. This changes everything, Morrison said, his voice carrying the weight of command decisions that would affect the lives of millions of human civilians. If we're facing a coordinated campaign against multiple human settlements, our defensive resources are going to be stretched beyond their limits. The Indomitable is our most powerful military asset, but even she can't be in 3 places at once. Chen understood the impossible position that Earth's military leadership now faced. Human colonies were scattered across 7 different star systems, each requiring significant defensive resources to protect against serious military threats. Earth's fleet consisted of only 12 major vessels capable of engaging unknown enemies in deep space combat, and most of those ships were currently positioned to defend Earth itself rather than the outer colonies. General, what are our options for requesting assistance from Council forces? Chen asked, knowing that the answer would likely be disappointing but needing to explore every possibility. The Council has imposed sanctions on Earth, but surely they wouldn't allow genocide to continue unchallenged. Morrison's bitter laugh carried no humor whatsoever. The Council's position is that the sanctions prevent them from providing military assistance until the investigation into Titan Colony is completed. Ambassador Vasquez has been trying to negotiate some form of emergency exception, but the bureaucratic process could take weeks while our people are under attack.
The political trap surrounding Earth was becoming clearer to Chen with each new piece of information.
Someone had orchestrated not just the massacre at Titan Colony, but the subsequent framing of Earth for the atrocity. The resulting isolation had left humanity vulnerable to exactly the kind of coordinated attack that was now unfolding across multiple systems. "Admiral," Commander Martinez interrupted again, her voice now carrying a note of excitement rather than alarm. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the UES Defiance. Captain Rodriguez reports that his ship has completed emergency repairs and is requesting permission to join our response to the developing situation in Kepler. 442. The UES Defiance was humanity's newest deep space combat vessel, completed only 6 months earlier and equipped with experimental weapons systems that pushed the boundaries of human engineering capabilities. Captain Rodriguez had distinguished himself during the ship's shakedown cruise by developing innovative tactical applications for the vessel's advanced systems, making the Defiance potentially even more effective in combat than the larger Indomitable. Chen felt the first stirring of hope since receiving news of the massacre. With both the Indomitable and the Defiance responding to the situation in Kepler, 442, Earth would be able to deploy sufficient firepower to engage the mysterious fleet on relatively equal terms. More importantly, the presence of 2 advanced human warships would send a clear message to whoever was responsible for the attacks that Earth would not passively accept the murder of its civilians. "Grant Captain Rodriguez permission to rendezvous with us at the edge of the Kepler 442 system," Chen instructed Martinez, "and transmit our current tactical assessments to the Defiance so that Captain Rodriguez can begin developing engagement strategies during the transit." Chen returned to her communication with General Morrison to coordinate the broader strategic response to what was clearly becoming a multi-front conflict. As they spoke, additional reports flowed in from monitoring stations throughout human space, painting a picture of a carefully coordinated campaign designed to strike at humanity's most vulnerable and isolated settlements. "Sarah, I'm authorizing you to engage the unknown fleet with maximum force," Morrison said, his expression reflecting the weight of ordering potentially the first interstellar war in human history. "The rules of engagement are simple. Any vessel that poses a threat to human civilian populations is to be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. We cannot allow the massacre at Titan Colony to be repeated." The authorization carried implications that went far beyond the immediate tactical situation. By ordering Chen to engage with maximum force, Morrison was effectively declaring that Earth would no longer rely on galactic law and council protection for the safety of its citizens. Humanity was stepping outside the established order and asserting its right to defend itself regardless of the political consequences. "Understood, General," Chen replied, feeling the familiar mixture of anticipation and dread that preceded major combat operations. "The Indomitable will be ready for action when we reach the target system." As the communication ended, Chen returned to the bridge to find her crew preparing for what would likely be the most significant military engagement in human history. The tactical displays showed both friendly and unknown vessel positions, while status boards indicated that the ship's weapon systems, shields, and defensive countermeasures were being brought to full readiness. "Commander Martinez, open a ship-wide communication channel," Chen instructed, knowing that her crew deserved to understand the magnitude of what they were about to face. The men and women aboard the Indomitable had volunteered for deep space service, knowing that they might face unknown dangers in humanity's expansion among the stars, but none of them had expected to find themselves defending against genocide. "This is Admiral Chen speaking to all hands," she began, her voice carrying clearly throughout the massive ship. "In approximately 16 hours, we will engage unknown hostile forces responsible for the massacre of 50,000 human civilians at Titan Colony. This will be the first major military action in Earth's history fought beyond our home system, and the outcome will determine whether humanity can maintain its place among the galactic community." She paused, allowing the crew to absorb the significance of the moment before continuing. "The enemy we face appears to possess advanced technology and has demonstrated their willingness to murder innocent civilians. However, they have never faced the Earth Defense Force in open combat. They have never experienced the determination of humans fighting to protect their own people. They are about to learn that there are some lines that cannot be crossed without consequence." The response from the crew was immediate and unmistakable. Throughout the ship, men and women who had trained for years in the possibility of defending humanity against unknown threats began their final preparations for combat. Weapon systems were calibrated, armor was checked and secured, and emergency protocols were reviewed by teams who had practiced these procedures countless times but never expected to use them in actual warfare. As the Indomitable adjusted course toward the Kepler 442 system, Chen found herself thinking about the broader implications of the conflict that was about to unfold. Humanity had spent 3 years learning to navigate the complex political relationships that govern galactic civilization, trying to prove that Earth could be a responsible and peaceful member of the cosmic community. Now, however, peace had failed. Diplomacy had been used as a weapon against Earth, and the established order had abandoned humanity to face genocide alone. The approaching battle would determine not just whether human civilians could be protected, but whether Earth would emerge from this crisis as a species that could command respect through strength rather than simply hoping for tolerance through submission. Chen realized that regardless of the tactical outcome of the engagement with the unknown fleet, the galaxy was about to witness a fundamental change in humanity's approach to interstellar relations. Earth had tried cooperation and had been rewarded with isolation and massacre. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of when their survival was at stake. The countdown to combat continued with mechanical precision, but Chen knew that the next few hours would reshape humanity's destiny among the stars in ways that no one could fully anticipate. The only certainty was that Earth would no longer accept the role of helpless victim in whatever game was being played with human lives. The bridge of the UES Indomitable hummed with controlled tension as the massive warship dropped out of quantum slipstream at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Chen watched the tactical displays update in real time as her ship's advanced sensor arrays swept the system, cataloging every energy signature, debris field, and potential threat within scanning range. What they found exceeded even her most pessimistic expectations for the scope of destruction that had been unleashed upon humanity's most successful colony. Titan Colony had been completely erased from existence. The orbital manufacturing platforms that had taken 3 years to construct were now expanding clouds of metallic debris drifting slowly away from the planet's gravitational influence. The agricultural satellites that had provided fresh food for multiple human settlements were gone, leaving only scattered fragments that glowed faintly with residual radiation. Even the planet's surface showed scarring visible from orbit, where directed energy weapons had carved geometric patterns into the landscape with surgical precision. Admiral, sensor analysis indicates that the destruction was far more extensive than initial reports suggested. Commander Martinez reported, her voice carefully controlled despite the horror of what the displays revealed. Based on debris patterns and energy residue, the attackers used weapons capable of molecular disintegration. Every human structure in the system has been reduced to component atoms. Chen absorbed this information with the stoic professionalism that her position required, but internally she felt a cold fury building that threatened to overwhelm her rational judgment. Molecular disintegration weapons were considered so horrifically effective that most galactic civilizations had banned their development through formal treaties. The fact that someone had used such weapons against human civilians suggested a level of malicious intent that went far beyond simple territorial disputes or economic competition. "What's the status of the approaching hostile fleet?" Chen asked, forcing herself to focus on immediate tactical concerns rather than the implications of facing an enemy willing to use prohibited weapons of mass destruction. "They've established a perimeter approximately 2 light hours from the planet," replied Lieutenant Commander Zhang, the ship's tactical officer. 37 vessels in a defensive formation that doesn't match any known military doctrine in our databases. Energy signatures suggest their technology is significantly more advanced than anything in current Council military inventories. The tactical display updated to show the enemy fleet's position, and Chen studied their formation with the experienced eye of someone who had spent decades analyzing military strategies. The formation was elegant in its simplicity, providing overlapping fields of fire while maintaining excellent communication links between individual vessels. More troubling, it was a formation designed specifically to counter the kind of direct assault tactics that human military doctrine emphasized. "They know exactly how we fight," Chen murmured, recognizing the implications immediately. "This formation is designed to neutralize our advantages in speed and firepower concentration. Someone has studied our tactical preferences very carefully." The communication console chimed with an incoming transmission from the UES Defiance, and Captain Rodriguez's image appeared on Chen's personal display. The younger officer's face showed the same mixture of professional calm and barely controlled anger that Chen felt burning within herself. "Admiral, the Defiance has completed system entry and is moving to the designated rendezvous coordinates," Rodriguez reported. "Our preliminary scans confirm the complete destruction of all human installations in the system. Ma'am, I've never seen anything like this level of destruction, outside of theoretical war games." Chen nodded grimly. "Captain, we're dealing with an enemy that possesses both advanced technology and detailed knowledge of human military capabilities. I want the Defiance to maintain a supporting position during our initial engagement, ready to exploit any tactical opportunities that develop. As the two human warships moved toward their confrontation with the unknown fleet, Chen found herself thinking about the broader strategic implications of the developing battle. Earth's military doctrine had been developed primarily for defensive operations within human-controlled space, with the assumption that any major threats would come from established galactic powers whose capabilities and limitations were well understood. The enemy they now faced operated outside those assumptions entirely. Their technology exceeded that of known civilizations, their tactics suggested intimate knowledge of human capabilities, and their willingness to use weapons of mass destruction indicated a complete disregard for the laws and conventions that govern civilized warfare. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet," Martinez announced, her voice carrying a note of surprise. "They're using standard Council communication protocols, and the message appears to be directed specifically at us." Chen felt a chill of recognition as the implications became clear. If the enemy was using Council communication protocols and addressing the human ships directly, it meant they had been expecting Earth's military response. The entire situation was becoming increasingly reminiscent of an elaborate trap designed to lure human forces into a predetermined engagement. "Put it through to the main display," Chen ordered, knowing that whatever message awaited them would likely provide crucial intelligence about their opponent's identity and motivations. The holographic display activated to reveal a figure that sent shockwaves through everyone on the bridge who saw it. The being speaking to them appeared to be completely human, wearing a modified version of Earth Defense Force uniform with rank insignia that identified him as a human admiral. His features were sharp and intelligent, his bearing carried the unmistakable confidence of experienced military command, and his voice carried no trace of alien accent or translation artifacts. "Admiral Chen, Captain Rodriguez, I am Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terra Liberation Front," the figure said, his words falling into the stunned silence of the human bridges like physical blows. "You are probably surprised to discover that the forces responsible for cleansing Titan Colony are of human origin. Allow me to explain why the elimination of Council collaborating settlements has become necessary for humanity's long-term survival." Chen felt the world tilting around her as she struggled to process what she was hearing. The Terra Liberation Front was a radical organization that had opposed Earth's membership in the Galactic Council from the beginning, arguing that alien influence would corrupt human civilization and ultimately lead to humanity's subjugation or extinction. Intelligence services had monitored the group for years, but their activities had never progressed beyond political protests and propaganda distribution. "The Galactic Council represents an existential threat to human independence," Webb continued, his image maintaining perfect clarity despite the vast distance between the opposing forces. "Every day that Earth remains a Council member, we become more dependent on alien technology, alien trade relationships, and alien political structures. The settlements like Titan Colony represent the beginning of our species' voluntary enslavement to galactic interests that view humanity as nothing more than useful servants." The explanation was both horrifying and logically coherent in its twisted rationality. Chen realized that the Terra Liberation Front had somehow acquired technology and resources that allowed them to operate a fleet capable of destroying human colonies while framing Earth's government for the atrocities. The ultimate goal appeared to be forcing a break between Earth and the Galactic Council through a campaign of false flag operations. "Admiral Webb," Chen responded, activating her own transmission systems to address the rogue human fleet. "You are responsible for the murder of 50,000 innocent civilians, including children and elderly colonists who pose no threat to anyone. Whatever your political objectives might be, genocide is not an acceptable means of achieving them." Webb's expression remained coldly rational as he considered Chen's words. "Admiral, I understand your emotional response to necessary casualties, but you must consider the broader strategic picture. Those 50,000 civilians were volunteering to serve alien interests by developing resources that would ultimately be used to further subjugate Earth. Their sacrifice has revealed the true nature of Council protection and will ultimately save millions of human lives." Chen felt sick as she listened to Webb's justification for mass murder. The logic was superficially persuasive, but it ignored the fundamental reality that the Titan Colony civilians had been ordinary people trying to build better lives for themselves and their families. They had been farmers, engineers, teachers, and medical professionals, not willing participants in some cosmic conspiracy against human independence. "You have 30 minutes to surrender your vessels and submit to arrest for crimes against humanity," Chen declared, knowing that her ultimatum would be rejected, but needing to establish the legal and moral framework for the engagement that was about to commence. After that time, the Earth Defense Force will consider your ships to be hostile and will respond accordingly. Webb's image smiled with what appeared to be genuine amusement. Admiral, I expected you to be more tactically sophisticated than that. You command 2 ships against my fleet of 37 vessels equipped with technology that your Earthbound designers cannot even comprehend. More importantly, you are operating under Council-imposed restrictions that limit your access to the very weapon systems that might give you a chance in this engagement. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Indomitable in stunned silence as Chen and her crew absorbed the full implications of what they had just learned. Earth was facing not just an unknown alien threat, but a civil war against human forces that had somehow acquired advanced technology and were using it to destroy the very people they claimed to be protecting. Admiral, tactical analysis suggests that Admiral Webb's assessment of our relative capabilities is unfortunately accurate, Lieutenant Commander Zhang reported, his voice carefully professional despite the grim nature of his conclusions.
Even with the Defiance supporting us, we are severely outgunned and outnumbered by the enemy fleet.
Chen studied the tactical displays that showed the 2 human warships facing off against a force that exceeded them in every measurable category. The Terra Liberation Front fleet included vessels that appeared to be built using completely unfamiliar design principles, with energy signatures that suggested power generation and weapon systems far beyond anything in Earth's current technological arsenal. However, Zhang continued, consulting additional data streams from the ship's analysis computers, there are several anomalies in the enemy fleet's formation and technology that suggest potential vulnerabilities. The vessels appear to be prototypes or experimental designs, which might mean they haven't been fully tested in actual combat conditions. Chen seized on this potential advantage with the desperation of someone facing impossible odds. What specific vulnerabilities have you identified? The enemy ships are maintaining unusually tight formation intervals, which suggests either communication difficulties or coordination problems between vessels, Zhang explained. Additionally, their energy signatures show periodic fluctuations that might indicate power system instabilities. If we could exploit those weaknesses simultaneously across multiple targets, we might be able to create tactical opportunities. The plan that began forming in Chen's mind was audaciously risky and would require perfect timing between the Indomitable and the Defiance. It would also require both human crews to perform at levels that exceeded their training parameters, while facing technology that might render their best efforts meaningless. However, it was the only strategy that offered any hope of preventing the Terra Liberation Front from continuing their campaign of terror against human civilians. Commander Martinez, establish a secure tactical coordination link with the Defiance.
Chen ordered, knowing that their only chance of success depended on perfect synchronization between the 2 ships.
Captain Rodriguez and I are going to need to execute a combined assault pattern that will push both our vessels beyond their design specifications. As the countdown to combat continued, Chen found herself thinking about the broader implications of the conflict that was about to unfold. Regardless of the tactical outcome, the revelation that humans were responsible for massacring their own civilians would reshape Earth's relationship with the galactic community in ways that no one could fully predict. If the Terra Liberation Front succeeded in destroying the Indomitable and the Defiance, they would continue their campaign against Council-affiliated human settlements until Earth was forced to withdraw from galactic civilization entirely. If Chen managed to defeat the rogue fleet, Earth would still face the political consequences of human forces committing genocide while using advanced technology that raised questions about unauthorized weapons development programs. Chen realized that she was fighting not just for the lives of her crew and the prevention of future massacres, but for humanity's entire future among the stars. The next few hours would determine whether Earth emerged from this crisis as a species capable of policing its own extremist elements, or as a pariah civilization too dangerous to be trusted with membership in galactic society. The tactical displays showed the enemy fleet beginning to move toward the human ships, their formation shifting into what appeared to be an attack pattern designed to overwhelm the smaller force through concentrated firepower. Chen knew that her window for implementing her desperate strategy was rapidly closing, and that everything would depend on whether human courage and determination could overcome superior numbers and technology. "All hands, this is Admiral Chen," she announced ship-wide, knowing that her crew deserved to understand what they were about to face. "In 10 minutes, we will engage rogue human forces responsible for committing genocide against our own people. The enemy possesses superior numbers and technology, but they have forgotten something crucial about the men and women of the Earth Defense Force. We do not abandon our people to murderers, regardless of what flag those murderers choose to fly." The space around Kepler, 442b erupted into a maelstrom of energy discharges and exotic matter streams, as 39 vessels engaged in the most sophisticated military action in recorded human history. Admiral Chen gripped the command console of the UES Indomitable as her ship's inertial dampeners struggled to compensate for the violent maneuvering required to avoid the Terror Liberation Front's devastating weapons fire. Around her, the bridge crew worked with mechanical precision despite the chaos that surrounded their vessel, their training and professionalism holding firm even as they faced technology that challenged their understanding of what was possible in space combat. The initial exchange of fire had revealed the true extent of the technological gap between Earth's military and the rogue human fleet. The Terror Liberation Front vessels discharged beams of coherent energy that punched through the Indomitable's shields as if they were made of paper, forcing Chen to rely on speed and unpredictable movement patterns to avoid taking catastrophic damage. The ship's own weapons, while effective against known threats, seemed to barely scratch the exotic armor systems that protected the enemy vessels. "Admiral forward, shields are down to 30% effectiveness," reported Lieutenant Commander Zhang, his voice tight with concentration as he coordinated the ship's defensive systems. "The enemy's weapons are operating on principles that our shield generators weren't designed to counter. Each hit is causing cumulative damage that we cannot repair during combat operations." Chen acknowledged the report while studying the tactical displays that showed the Defiance executing a series of hit-and-run attacks against the enemy formation's left flank. Captain Rodriguez had proven remarkably adept at exploiting the brief windows of opportunity that appeared when Terror Liberation Front vessels had to recharge their weapons systems, but even his innovative tactics were only delaying the inevitable outcome of such an unequal engagement. "Commander Martinez, what's our status on the quantum torpedo modifications?" Chen asked, referring to the desperate gamble that represented their only hope of inflicting meaningful damage on the enemy fleet. The ship's weapons specialists had been working frantically to reconfigure their most powerful ordnance to exploit the energy fluctuations that Zhang had identified in the enemy vessel's power systems. "Modifications are complete on 6 torpedoes, Admiral," Martinez replied, consulting data from the weapons bays deep within the ship's armored hull. Chief Engineer Patterson warns that the modifications are completely untested and might result in catastrophic weapon system failures, but the theoretical projections suggest they should be able to penetrate the enemy's defensive systems. The modified torpedoes represented a technological leap that pushed human engineering capabilities beyond their established limits. By incorporating principles reverse-engineered from captured alien technology and combining them with Earth's most advanced weapon systems, the engineering teams had created devices that existed at the very edge of what human science considered possible. The gamble was that such hybrid technology might be effective against enemies who had prepared to counter purely human or purely alien weapon systems. "Prepare to execute attack pattern Omega on my command," Chen ordered, knowing that the strategy she was about to implement would either provide them with the breakthrough they desperately needed or result in the destruction of both human warships. Attack pattern Omega required the Indomitable and Defiance to coordinate their assault with precision measured in microseconds while operating at velocities that would tax both vessels' structural integrity. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly despite their best efforts. The Terror Liberation Front fleet had recovered from the initial surprise of facing Earth Defense Force vessels and was now moving to envelop the 2 smaller ships in a formation that would allow them to bring overwhelming firepower to bear. Admiral Webb's forces were demonstrating the same tactical sophistication that had characterized their assault on Titan Colony, suggesting command experience that went far beyond what a terrorist organization should have been able to acquire. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the enemy flagship," Martinez announced, her tone suggesting that she would prefer not to have to relay whatever message was incoming from the rogue human forces. Chen nodded grimly. "Put it through. Let's hear what Admiral Webb has to say about our tactical performance." Webb's image appeared on the main display, his expression showing what appeared to be genuine respect for the Earth Defense Force's resistance despite the overwhelming odds they faced. Behind him, Chen could see the bridge of his flagship, which appeared to be equipped with control systems that combined human ergonomics with technology that she couldn't identify. "Admiral Chen, you and Captain Rodriguez have acquitted yourselves admirably," Webb said, his voice carrying the tone of a professional military officer addressing respected opponents. "Your tactical innovations have been impressive, and your crews have demonstrated exactly the kind of courage and skill that will be necessary for humanity's ultimate independence from alien influence." Chen felt her anger flare at Webb's patronizing tone. "Admiral, you are a traitor and a murderer. Whatever technology you've acquired doesn't change the fundamental fact that you've committed genocide against your own species." Webb's expression hardened slightly, but his voice remained controlled and rational. "Admiral, you're still thinking in terms of the artificial divisions that the Council has imposed on humanity. There are no traitors in this conflict. Only humans who understand what's necessary for our species' survival, and humans who have been deceived by alien propaganda designed to ensure our compliance. The communication channel crackled with interference as both fleets continued their deadly dance through the debris field that had once been humanity's most successful colony. Chen could see on the tactical displays that several Terra Liberation Front vessels were moving to flanking positions that would allow them to attack both human warships simultaneously from multiple angles. "I'm offering you one final opportunity to join the liberation of our species," Webb continued, his image flickering as exotic energy discharges interfered with the transmission systems. "Your ships and crews represent exactly the kind of military assets that will be necessary for humanity's transition to true independence. Surrender now, and you can help us eliminate the remaining Council-contaminated settlements before they spread alien influence any further." Chen's response was immediate and uncompromising. "Admiral, the Earth Defense Force will never participate in genocide regardless of how you choose to justify it. Our duty is to protect human civilians, not to murder them in service of your twisted political agenda." Webb's image nodded slowly, as if he had expected exactly that response. "I understand your position, Admiral. Unfortunately, loyalty to the Council's version of humanity leaves me no choice but to eliminate you as a threat to the liberation process. Your deaths will be remembered as necessary sacrifices for the greater good of our species." The transmission ended just as the Terra Liberation Front fleet began its final coordinated assault on the two Earth Defense Force vessels. Chen watched the tactical displays update to show energy weapons charging throughout the enemy formation, their combined firepower sufficient to vaporize both the Indomitable and Defiance within seconds once the attack commenced. "All weapons stations prepare to execute attack pattern Omega," Chen ordered, knowing that this would be their only opportunity to strike before being overwhelmed by superior numbers. "Target the enemy flagship and its 3 nearest escort vessels. Fire on my command." The next 30 seconds unfolded with the deadly precision of a carefully choreographed dance between opposing forces that understood each other's capabilities perfectly. The Indomitable and Defiance accelerated toward the Terra Liberation Front formation at maximum velocity, their experimental weapon systems charging with energies that pushed human technology beyond its established safety parameters. The modified quantum torpedoes launched simultaneously from both ships, their hybrid human-alien technology creating energy signatures that confused the enemy's defensive systems long enough for the weapons to penetrate their target vessels' shields. The explosions that followed were unlike anything Chen had ever witnessed, as the torpedoes interacted with the Terra Liberation Front's exotic technology in ways that neither side had anticipated. Admiral Webb's flagship erupted in a cascade of energy releases that created localized distortions in space-time itself. The exotic matter that powered the rogue vessel's systems underwent some form of catastrophic resonance that spread to the 3 escort vessels, creating a chain reaction that consumed all 4 ships in a matter of seconds. The destruction of the flagship and its escorts created a momentary confusion in the Terra Liberation Front formation as the remaining vessels struggled to adapt to the loss of their command structure. Chen seized the opportunity to implement the second phase of her desperate strategy, ordering both human ships to concentrate their fire on the enemy vessels, showing the power system fluctuations that might indicate additional vulnerabilities. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is breaking formation," Zhang reported, his voice carrying a note of surprised relief. "It appears that the destruction of their flagship has disrupted their coordination systems. Several enemy vessels are withdrawing from the engagement area." Chen watched in amazement as nearly a third of the Terra Liberation Front fleet disengaged from combat and began retreating toward the edge of the star system. The remaining vessels continued fighting, but their attacks lacked the coordinated precision that had made them so dangerous during the initial engagement. "Continue targeting vessels showing power fluctuations," Chen ordered, recognizing that this unexpected advantage might provide them with their first real opportunity to defeat the numerically superior enemy force. "Focus fire on individual targets until they're destroyed or forced to withdraw." The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The loss of Admiral Webb and his flagship had revealed fundamental weaknesses in the Terra Liberation Front's command structure and technology that the Earth Defense Force was able to exploit ruthlessly. One by one, the remaining enemy vessels were either destroyed or forced to retreat, leaving the 2 human warships as the sole survivors in the debris-strewn system that had once housed 50,000 civilians. As the last Terra Liberation Front vessel jumped to hyperspace, Chen allowed herself a moment to absorb the magnitude of what they had accomplished. Against overwhelming odds and superior technology, the Earth Defense Force had managed to defeat a fleet of rogue humans equipped with weapons that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. "Admiral, we're detecting massive quantum distortions approaching the system," Martinez announced, her voice carrying a new note of concern. Multiple fleets are dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Energy signatures suggest Council military vessels from at least 6 different species. Chen felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as she realized that the galactic community's military forces had finally responded to the crisis in human space. However, their arrival also meant that Earth would now have to explain how human vessels equipped with unknown technology had been responsible for the massacre at Titan Colony. The lead vessel among the arriving fleets transmitted identification codes that marked it as the Council's premier diplomatic and military vessel, the Harmony of Spheres. The ship's captain was Director General Kathvar themselves, indicating that the Council was treating this situation with the highest possible level of attention and concern. Admiral Chen, this is Director General Kathvar commanding the combined Council fleet. The familiar crystalline voice carried across the communication channels. We have been monitoring your engagement with unknown hostile forces. Please transmit a full report of events in this system for immediate analysis by Council military specialists. Chen realized that the next few minutes would be crucial in determining how the galactic community interpreted the battle they had just witnessed. Earth's military had proven capable of defeating advanced rogue forces, but they had also revealed that humans possessed weapons technology that exceeded their supposed development level. Director General, this is Admiral Chen reporting, she began, knowing that her words would be analyzed by experts from dozens of different species. The hostile forces responsible for the Titan Colony massacre have been identified as rogue human elements operating under the designation Terra Liberation Front. These forces possess technology of unknown origin and were led by individuals claiming to act in humanity's long-term interests. As Chen transmitted her initial report to the Council fleet, she couldn't help but wonder what the political implications of their victory would be. Earth had demonstrated that it could police its own extremist elements, but the revelation that rogue humans had access to advanced technology would raise new questions about humanity's trustworthiness as a galactic partner. The battle was over, but Chen suspected that the real challenge for Earth's future among the stars was just beginning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 weeks after the Battle of Kepler 442, and the atmosphere in the Great Assembly Chamber was unlike anything Ambassador Elena Vasquez had experienced during her years of diplomatic service. Representatives from 412 different species filled the vast space, their varied physiologies creating a tapestry of colors, sounds, and environmental conditions that spoke to the incredible diversity of galactic civilization. However, beneath the familiar chaos of interspecies communication, Elena detected an undercurrent of profound unease that suggested the galaxy itself was grappling with fundamental questions about the nature of civilized society. The forensic investigation into the Titan Colony massacre had been the most comprehensive in Council history, involving specialists from 27 different species and technologies that pushed the boundaries of what was considered scientifically possible. The results of that investigation had shattered assumptions about human capabilities, galactic security, and the effectiveness of established systems for preventing the kind of technological proliferation that had made the Terra Liberation Front's campaign possible. Elena took her seat in the human delegation area, noting that their section had been quietly expanded to accommodate additional personnel from Earth's military and intelligence services. The presence of Admiral Chen and Captain Rodriguez at a council session was unprecedented, but Director General Kathavar had specifically requested their testimony about the technology and tactics they had encountered during their engagement with the rogue human fleet.
Distinguished representatives, Director General Kathvar's crystalline voice resonated through the chamber's translation systems.
We convene this emergency session to address findings that challenge our understanding of galactic security and the prevention of prohibited weapons development. The investigation into recent events in the Kepler
442 system has revealed evidence of technology transfers and weapons proliferation that represent the gravest threat to galactic stability in over 2 centuries. Elena felt her heart rate increase as she absorbed the implications of the Director General's opening statement. If the investigation had uncovered evidence of large-scale weapons proliferation, it meant that the Terra Liberation Front's capabilities represented only a fraction of a much larger threat to galactic security. Admiral Gorthek of the Hegemony delegation rose ponderously from their reinforced chair, their massive form commanding immediate attention throughout the chamber. The Hegemony had been among Earth's strongest supporters during humanity's integration into galactic society, making their perspective on recent events particularly significant. Director General, the Hegemony Corporate Consortium requests immediate clarification of the scope of this alleged weapons proliferation. Gorthek rumbled, their voice carrying undertones that Elena's translation implant interpreted as deep concern. Our preliminary analysis of the Terra Liberation Front's technology suggests capabilities that exceed those of several Council member species. Such technological advancement cannot occur in isolation. Director General Kathvar's crystalline form shifted to deeper blue tones that indicated grave concern as they activated the chamber's primary holographic display system. The three-dimensional projection that materialized above the assembly floor showed a complex web of connections linking dozens of star systems, with data streams indicating resource flows, communication patterns, and energy signatures that painted a picture of unprecedented scope and sophistication. The investigation has revealed that the Terra Liberation Front was not an isolated terrorist organization, but rather one component of a galaxy-spanning conspiracy involving elements from multiple Council member species, Kathvar announced, their words falling into stunned silence as the implications became clear to representatives throughout the chamber. Elena stared at the display in shock as she recognized system designations from across the galaxy, including territories controlled by species that she had worked with personally during her diplomatic service. The conspiracy appeared to involve not just fringe groups or criminal organizations, but elements within the established governments and military hierarchies of major galactic powers. Furthermore, the Director General continued, evidence suggests that this conspiracy has been active for over 50 years, systematically developing and distributing advanced weapons technology while positioning various species against each other through carefully orchestrated incidents and false flag operations. The chamber erupted in cacophony as representatives from dozens of species began demanding explanations, accusations, and immediate actions. Eleanor watched the political order that had maintained galactic peace for centuries begin to fracture as the reality of the conspiracy's scope became apparent to those who had trusted their civilization's stability to established institutions and long-standing treaties. Ambassador Zeinlus of the Altarian Federation rose gracefully, their translucent forms seeming to glow with internal energy as they addressed the assembly. The Altarians were among the galaxy's most ancient and sophisticated civilizations, making their response to these revelations particularly significant. Director General, if these allegations are accurate, then the very foundations of Council authority have been compromised, Zeinlos said, their melodious voice carrying undertones of profound concern. The Federation demands to know how such a conspiracy could operate for decades without detection by Council security services. Kathvar's response carried implications that sent chills through Elena's spine. Ambassador Zeinlos, the investigation has revealed that Council security services were not merely ineffective in detecting this conspiracy. Evidence suggests that elements within those services were active participants in its operations. The revelation that Council security itself had been compromised triggered a response that threatened to tear the assembly apart. Representatives began shouting accusations in dozens of languages while security personnel moved nervously through the chamber, their exotic weapons and armor suddenly seeming inadequate to maintain order in a crisis of this magnitude. Elena realized that she was witnessing the beginning of the greatest political upheaval in galactic history. The conspiracy had not merely sought to destroy human colonies or manipulate Earth's relationship with the galactic community. It had been working to destabilize the entire system of interspecies cooperation that had prevented major wars for over 200 years. Director General Kathvar raised one crystalline appendage for attention, their form shifting to the brilliant white tones that commanded absolute silence throughout the chamber. However, the investigation has also revealed evidence that offers hope for restoring galactic stability. The human military's engagement with Terra Liberation Front forces provided crucial intelligence about the conspiracy's capabilities and limitations. Admiral Chen rose from her position in the human delegation area when Kathvar gestured for her to address the assembly. Elena could see the weight of responsibility on the Admiral's shoulders as she prepared to brief the most powerful beings in the galaxy about humanity's first major interstellar military engagement. Distinguished representatives, Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. The Earth Defense Force's engagement with rogue human elements revealed that the conspiracy's advanced technology is not as invulnerable as it initially appeared. Our forces were able to develop countermeasures and tactics that proved effective against weapon systems that exceeded our theoretical understanding. Chen activated a tactical display that showed the progression of the battle at Kepler 442, highlighting the specific moments where human innovation had overcome technological disadvantages through determination and creative thinking. More importantly, Chen continued, our analysis suggests that the conspiracy's greatest weakness is its reliance on secrecy and manipulation. When forced into open military confrontation, their forces proved vulnerable to direct action by personnel motivated by genuine conviction rather than manufactured ideology. Elena felt a surge of pride as she watched galactic representatives absorbing Chen's testimony about human military capabilities and tactical innovations. Earth's forces had not merely survived their encounter with advanced enemy technology. They had demonstrated the kind of adaptability and courage that made humanity a valuable ally, rather than simply another junior member of the galactic community. Representative Kethmore of the Quantum Collective rose to address the assembly, their energy-based form crackling with what Elena's implant interpreted as intense curiosity. The Quantum Collective represented one of the galaxy's most technologically advanced civilizations, making their assessment of human capabilities particularly significant. Admiral Chen, our analysis of your tactical innovation suggests that human military doctrine incorporates principles that our strategists had not previously considered, Kethmore said, their voice carrying harmonic overtones that indicated deep respect. The modifications your forces made to conventional weapon systems demonstrate an approach to problem-solving that differs significantly from established galactic methods. Chen nodded acknowledgement of the praise while maintaining her professional demeanor. Representative Kethmore, human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability and innovation over technological superiority. We have learned that determination and creative thinking can overcome significant disadvantages in equipment and numbers. Elena recognized that the galaxy was witnessing something unprecedented. A junior member species demonstrating capabilities that impressed even the most advanced civilizations. Earth's approach to the conspiracy threat had proven more effective than the sophisticated security systems and ancient wisdom of species with millennia of experience in galactic affairs. Director General Kathvar called for attention once again, their crystalline form now displaying the complex color patterns that indicated major policy announcements. Based on the investigation's findings and the demonstrated effectiveness of human military response, the Council hereby authorizes the formation of a multi-species task force to combat the ongoing conspiracy threat. Earth's military forces will serve as the task force's primary operational component, with support from volunteer units from Council member species. The announcement represented a complete transformation of Earth's status within galactic society. Instead of being isolated and suspected of genocide, humanity was being entrusted with leadership of the galaxy's response to its greatest security crisis in centuries. Ambassador Zynlos rose again, their expression showing what Elena interpreted as grudging respect. The Altarian Federation pledges our full support to this task force. Recent events have demonstrated that humanity possesses qualities that our ancient civilization had forgotten, the ability to respond to unprecedented threats with innovation, rather than attempting to apply traditional solutions to novel problems. One by one, representatives from major galactic powers rose to pledge their support for the human-led task force. Elena watched in amazement as species that had initially opposed Earth's Council membership now competed to demonstrate their confidence in human leadership capabilities. The session continued for hours, as details of the task force's organization and mission parameters were debated and refined. Elena found herself participating in discussions about resource allocation, intelligence sharing, and strategic planning that would have been inconceivable just weeks earlier. As the formal session concluded, Elena realized that the galaxy had been transformed by the crisis that had initially threatened to destroy Earth's place within it. The conspiracy that had sought to manipulate and control galactic civilization had instead triggered a response that would make such manipulation impossible in the future. Humanity had entered galactic society as a junior partner, seeking acceptance and tolerance. They were emerging from their first major crisis as leaders of a coalition determined to preserve the freedoms and values that made galactic civilization worth protecting. Elena walked through the corridors of the Council station with Admiral Chen and Captain Rodriguez, their conversation focusing on the immense responsibilities that Earth would now shoulder in protecting galactic security. The weight of leadership was daunting, but Elena felt confident that humanity would prove worthy of the trust that had been placed in them. Admiral, Elena said as they approached the docking bay where Earth's ships waited to begin their new mission, do you think we're ready for this kind of responsibility? Chen paused to consider the question, her expression reflecting the same mixture of determination and humility that had carried Earth through its darkest crisis. Ambassador, 3 months ago someone tried to frame humanity for genocide and isolate us from galactic civilization. Instead of succeeding, they revealed that the galaxy needed exactly the kind of stubborn determination that humans bring to impossible problems. As the Earth Defense Force vessels departed Council space to begin their campaign against the conspiracy, Elena reflected on how profoundly the galaxy had changed. The crisis that had threatened to end humanity's stellar future had instead revealed that Earth's greatest strength lay not in their technology or resources, but in their absolute refusal to abandon their principles when faced with overwhelming opposition. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans said they would protect innocent civilians from genocide, they meant it regardless of who committed the atrocities or how advanced their weapons might be. The conspiracy had awakened something in humanity that would not rest until every world in the galaxy was safe from the kind of manipulation and violence that had claimed 50,000 lives at Titan Colony. Earth's real vengeance would not be measured in destroyed ships or conquered territories, but in the creation of a galactic civilization where such atrocities could never happen again.